which we live together. One sun shining on you and me. One ocean flows into another. One day we all will be free. One day we all will be free. One moment can change a whole lifetime. One life can change eternity. One stranger befriended, one broken heart mended, one child loved, one captive set free. One child loved, one captive set free.
The New Community Project had its beginnings nearly 20 years ago, in 2003, as a small, nonprofit organization with a big plan of changing the world. The focus is environmental sustainability and social justice. Both are essential for a peaceful human community. New Community Project considers the spiritual dimensions of our lives to be important and seeks to bring about deep interchange in our personal and societal values. New Community Project will work with anyone who shares a commitment to a world of peace and justice and sustainability. 20 years later, it's bringing change to a world that is seeking change. Hello, I'm Brent Carlson. Welcome to Brethren Voices. David Radcliff, the director of New Community Project, has been involved with the organization since its beginnings. He is a lecturer, conservation advocate, and citizen of the world. We had a chance to visit with David on Zoom to learn about its current involvements in the world. Looking back to 2003, we asked him what led to the beginnings of the New Community Project.
Well, actually, from the very beginning, there was a lot of just popular support for what we were trying to do. We came out of a certain mix of Church of the Brethren background, but also lots of other energies from around other places. And when people saw that what we were trying to do, what we were trying to form, they sort of wanted to be part of the process and part of the thing that we were trying to do. And so from the very beginning, we've been, I guess, beholden to, grateful for, supported by people around the country, both within and beyond the Church of the Brethren, because they saw something that they felt compelling and maybe weren't finding exactly this same combination of things in other places, other organizations. And so we've been, I guess you'd say, I want to say a popular movement, and I don't mean that in terms of just star power, but what I mean is that people have made us be able to do what we've done, providing their financial support, but also their moral support to what the kinds of things we're trying to do in our own country, but also around the world.
I am just amazed when I look back about you and what you're doing now. You were a pastor of the Church of the Brethren. You are also a lecturer. You're a conservation and advocate. You might want to call that something else. I also think you're a citizen of the world because you are thinking about yourself and what you do in terms of the world context, not just a little corner of the world. And in the New Community Project forum or umbrella, you do educational presentations, you do sermons, you teach Sunday school lessons to young people, maybe adults as well. You organize learning tours, and you connect and stay connected with people all over the world, whether it's first world, second world, third world.
Well, at New Community Project, we sort of feel like it's all about relationships, both here in the US and around the world. If you don't have those connecting points with people here and with people there, as well as with the environment around us, then you're missing some things that are very important. And so we depend on those relationships to keep us going, both kind of emotionally and spiritually, as well as pragmatically. because we count on those people and their support, whether it's kids. I mean, I personally feel like our part of our constituent groups are young people. If they don't think we're onto something important, I think we've got a problem and we need to relook at our mission. Older people, if they also aren't feeling somehow connected to what we're doing and feeling that it's important, we want to know that. But also our neighbors around the world, they're an important part of our constituency. If they don't think we're behaving well in terms of the way of relating to them, the kinds of relationships we have with them in terms of developing our programs, then also we've got a problem and we need to relook at what we're doing. I guess I feel the same way about the environment. If we're somehow not showing the environment the respect that it deserves just by virtue of it being this part of our world, and not just for what it will do for us, but for its own sake, then also I think that we're not doing something right. So those are all important constituent groups for us. And I also think it's an important part of our or any organization's success to be deeply involved in these relationships and learning from them. Even we go with ideas of our own, of course, resources of our own, but if we're not also having that reciprocity in terms of them being able to share their resources with us, their ideas with us, whatever those may be. They may not be material like some of ours, at least some of the resources, but they have a lot of capacity themselves. They have a lot of knowledge themselves. And we pay very much attention on drawing from them, drawing things out of them that are enriching us, as well as trying to offer what we have to enrich them. So that dynamic is, I think, a key part of what we're trying to do in this world.
I know through the power of email, you can send out information to people, and I'm hearing that you have about 11,000 people on your email list. That's gigantic. But you're also connected to maybe a dozen different communities in this country and around the world. How do you have a tickler file, or how do you stay connected with them in a way that they're responding to you? Because it's a little different than just sending out an email. That relationship needs to be nurtured and you have to talk to them. And I would think it's a challenge to stay connected and not lose track of what's going on in some places.
Well, we work really hard at that, both here in the USA and around the world. Here in the US, I have probably several dozen schools that I get to on somewhat regular basis, and more than that in terms of congregations. And so I work very hard at staying connected with those groups. For instance, I spend a week of my life every year in Missouri, in Warrensburg area, and connecting to schools and congregations there. I do the same in Fort Wayne. I'm getting new relationships in Iowa, and we have California, we have Pennsylvania. There are various places around the world that sort of hotspots of connectivity for new community project. And so I work at reminding them that if I'm going to be in their area, if they have possibilities for me to connect with them. Just recently, I've had a trip coming up to Pennsylvania that didn't involve a Sunday responsibility. And so I put the word out to congregations in that area about the potential for being connected on a Sunday. I've gotten 4 or 5 different responses. And so that Sunday's long gone. And I'm now having to look for other Sundays to get up there to connect with these other congregations that are also interested. So we sort of try to make ourselves available, both here in the USA, to schools, to congregations, to community groups, and sort of work hard to maintain those connections and get to those places so that you're a known commodity, especially schools. They're not going to let just anybody in the door, frankly. And so you get connected by somebody they know who trusts you, and then you get into the school, and then all of a sudden you're sort of a welcome presence there year after year after year. As students come up through the ranks, they all have to face me in some schools at some point in their career in that school. The same thing for the international connections. You have to work really hard at it. We go there. We don't really have any relationships abroad. We're in about 8 different locations around the world, 8 different countries. And we don't have any where we don't go on learning tours because we feel like to go and visit, to show our support, and also to learn from them, to hear the kind of questions and concerns that they have that maybe we haven't been addressing, or our partners in those places haven't been addressing, or that we can do something differently and better. It's really essential to our connectivity with them. Now, I know there's a lot of, fossil fuels involved in getting us to places like that on airplanes. And then once we're there on the buses or however we're traveling. So I feel like we almost have to get bang for the buck, the carbon buck, that if we're not going there and doing significant things to ourselves in terms of our learning, our changing of perspective, and also connecting with them in a way that's enlivening and respectful to them, and then learning how we can better work together in the future. If we aren't doing those things, it's not worth the carbon or the time or the money to go there. But it is worth that investment if we come home with new ideas, deeper relationship, better understanding of each other, and new ways to move forward. We were in Malawi on our first trip a little bit just before COVID broke in on the world. And for instance, one of the things we learned there just by being there and listening and learning was that the young women there girls in high school were having to go as much as 14 miles each way to high school, just walking, and they were walking. And so that was a real detriment to them staying in school. And it's so important for these young women to stay in school, which we may talk more about this later. But, half the girls in Malawi are married before they turn 18. And one way to avoid that, and then having children at an early age, and just does many things to impact their own future. So one of the antidote to that is to keep them in school, but having to go 14 miles to high school is not an incentive for staying in school. So we started a program called A Girl and a Bike, where we're providing a bicycle and a scholarship through our network, providing contributions to keep these girls rolling onto the school and to a better future. So the importance of listening to what you're hearing when you're in a place, and not going in like you've got all the ideas and all the solutions in your pocket, but you're there to listen and learn and to see what then we can do together. So, and then we work through our partner on the ground to put that program and others in Malawi into place.
We'll be back to share more of our visit with David Radcliff, but we wanted to tell you about the learning tours that are conducted to places where the people or their lands are threatened in some way. Unfortunately, this is happening all over this good earth. Many of the places where New Community Project learning tours go are places you would just never have a chance to visit as a tourist. One of these learning tours travels to New Mexico, the land of the native Dene. Many people know them as the Navajo people. And like so many places, they are threatened by oil drilling on their ancient lands. Some of the Dene have signed on to receiving an allotment by allowing drilling on their lands and their homesteads. And this has provided them with a little prosperity, sometimes up to $1,000 a month. But many receive much less. It's hard to blame them for doing this because their culture has been decimated as their lands have been controlled by others and jobs are hard to find. But not all families are willing to take the allotments, and there's plenty of reasons not to. $1,000 a month is not much compensation for the destruction of the environment and the pollution of the air and the water that they live on. In July 2017, a learning tour saw oil tankers blazing out of control, and the family that lived beside the site where the explosion occurred had to vacate, too traumatized to return. Pollution of the air is a big concern, along with the noise and possible water pollution. Over a 10-year period from 2009 to 2019, there were over 3,600 oil and gas spills. One of the biggest winners in this business is Halliburton, the same corporation that made billions of dollars off the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Learning tours have seen Halliburton in the Amazon, and now they are in the land of the Dene. There has been some organized resistance to the oil drilling in the Dene community. A New Community Project is actively working to support them by entering into partnership with the Liebrook Community Ministries, sponsored by the Church of the Brethren, and sending staff to collaborate with them along with visiting in their annual learning tour. New Mexico is called the land of enchantment, but perhaps the phrase the land of extraction is more appropriate, unless they can get control of the fossil fuel companies that seem to be calling the shots. Daniel Tso is a Dene elder and leader of the anti-fracking movement in this area of New Mexico. He's one of the few leaders who will stand up and speak out against an industry that provides billions of dollars to the New Mexico State Treasury. A given fracking well can be a mile deep and extend out horizontally a mile in any direction. There are 30,000 wells in this region, and only 7 Bureau of Land Management monitors to ensure compliance. The fracking process involves injecting an assortment of chemicals and water into the ground. And not even the EPA knows what chemicals are being used. It's all done with extremely high pressure. The liquid and chemicals break up the rock in a 300-foot radius of the pipe, releasing the gas and oil, while polluting groundwater in many instances and causing earthquakes in others. Fracking in this area began in 2014. The region is now a maze of pipes and tanks and road construction. They like to call this process multi-stage development, since the term hydraulic fracturing has gotten a bad name. Water tanker trucks are brought in as a well requires 6 to 8 million gallons of water. This 5-acre drilling pad has 6 wells. Each extracts 8,000 barrels of oil a day. This was some of the most scenic landscape in the USA. And now everywhere you look, this is the new landscape. The spinning wheel. By law, it's supposed to be covered with a sheath to protect people and animals from being caught in the spokes. Daniel says that if this were a non-native part of New Mexico, it would be covered. Those areas get more attention. He says this is part of the institutional racism that's behind these operations. And in this area, they're often not covered at all. Nearby is Chaco Canyon, one of the best preserved ancient archaeological sites in the world. But the Bureau of Land Management is considering allowing this to be an area for drilling. Learning tours to the Ecuadorian Amazon have witnessed similar happenings, contaminating the waters of the native people to the point where it is undrinkable. We asked David Radcliff, Director of New Community Projects, about the many partnerships that have been built over the years.
I'd been working in South Sudan for 12 or 15 years before New Community Project started. When I was with the Church of the Brethren at their headquarters, I was already making trips to South Sudan for various reasons, for kind of the kind of projects that NCP even works on today. I was still doing some of that earlier. So I had a natural conduit there with relationships that had formed over time. And so NCP just carried that on. But you take something like Malawi, where we've been involved now for about 2 years now. We started in 2020 or around that time, early 2020. There was a woman from Malawi in Vermont on an exchange program. She visited our Sustainable Living Center just by happenstance and fell in love with our work and realized we could be doing some collaboration with them in Malawi. And so that just was the way things played out in terms of her happening to be in Vermont, happening to connect with us, and then that got us into Malawi. And now we're in Malawi in a fairly big way, with reforestation, with girls' education, with women's empowerment. In terms of our connections in South Asia, we have fine partnerships in Myanmar and Nepal. Well, in 2005, two years after NCP started, I earned an around-the-world trip with United Airlines. I'd never been to that part of the world. I went there, connected with some groups just through various ways of finding the right people to connect with, and we're still working with those people there after that kind of, again, a weird happenstance of an around the world trip that took me to some places I'd never been before. The Amazon rainforest, when we started NCP, I was thinking about where we wanted to be involved internationally and where learning tours might be beneficial to our constituency as well as to the people we might visit. I was thinking to myself, who doesn't want to go to the Amazon rainforest? So I, for one, did. And so I did a web search for Native community, female-led, rainforest preservation, whatever group, and came up with a group that would host us. And then we got connected to Native groups in the Ecuadorian Amazon that we still are working with today.
I like to just give me some quick bullet points about what you're doing or what's important to know about those things. Let's start with the mangroves.
You know, I've always been interested in mangroves because they are ecological miracle workers, kind of. They're
Tell
habitat.
people what they are. What is a
Okay.
mangrove?
Well, these are, you've seen the scary movies with the mangrove swamps, you might say, like you think of the Dismal Swamp in Virginia or other swamps around the world, where you have these trees with these elaborate root systems that's come up out of the ground. So they're, you know, it's kind of a cobweb of root systems that link together along coastal areas. They're a coastal plant. There and they're stabilizing the coastal areas. They also provide all kinds of habitat. Their root systems provide habitat for all kinds of fish and other things. They clean the water, they clean the air. And because so much of their biomass is underground with the roots and in the soil, they sequester carbon at 4 times the rate of rainforest. So they're amazing. They're ecological miracles. And they're disappearing around the world for shrimp farms, for firewood collection, for quote development. I don't really like that word because I consider it undevelopment, but you know, golf courses and beach condominiums and that sort of thing. And so we've lost about a quarter of them. And so about a year and a half ago, out of the blue, I got a request from someone in Nigeria to support their mangrove restoration project along the southern coast of Nigeria in the Niger Delta. I don't know whether Google let them know that this was on my mind, but they talked to the right guy because I talked with my staff colleagues, with our board, and now we've moved ahead with significant support. This year, $20,000, which will plant about 40,000 mangrove saplings along the coastal areas of Nigeria.
Okay, next one, water.
Oh, we're in trouble, my friend. It's only going to get worse. I was just reading an article today about the Olympics and the draw that's making on water for the snowmaking at the Beijing Olympics, and how China in whole total, as well as many other parts of the world, are facing looming water crises. There are many reasons for this. Part is, of course, our overconsumption, all the water that's used in keeping our industrialized societies going, from power generation to agriculture to consumer goods, all those things. But also just the climate change and its impacts. Either often there's way too much water and that causes flooding, which is not good really for anybody, or there's not enough precipitation, which is causing places like the Himalaya, the Sierra Nevada, the Alaska range, for the glaciers there, the mountaintop snow that's feeding the rivers that flow down through these valleys, that's diminishing. If we can go back to Malawi for just a second, my friends there, they tell us just this past growing season, they planted the crops in October, waiting for the regular monsoon rains to begin around them. The monsoon rains didn't come till January. So all the stuff that was in the ground waiting to sprout, or if it did sprout, didn't get the water that it needed, has caused enormous food insecurity. And then a cyclone hit that part of the world, which are really unusual, especially since the severity of the kind of cyclones they're getting now. So then it flooded out what even had started growing. So you've got the double whammy of water, too much water, not enough water. Of course, we've experienced that here in our United States. Climate change and the impacts it's having on water availability.
Students for Change.
Young people they know something's wrong. They know old people aren't doing enough about it, and they want to be part of the change. They're unjaded enough to think they can change things.
Maybe it's innocent.
Innocent enough, but also, you know, I want to say, maybe they're savvy enough to know that if enough of us get our voices raised, things can change. And so really my biggest audience these days are school kids.
Fascinating. Give a girl a chance.
Well, what more important thing can we be doing in this world? Of all the other things we do at New Community Project, I mean, I feel like we're got our pulse on a bunch of stuff, but helping young women succeed and women succeed in their own societies is critical. It has so many good things for them in terms of their own self-esteem, in terms of their health, in terms of their participation in the life of their communities if they get an education. And women, we just were in Nepal and we met with Migma Sherpa, who I had met 4 years ago on our trip to Nepal then. And at that point, she'd just gotten a microloan from New Community Project through our partner, Shakti Samuha in Nepal. She'd just gotten a microloan. Now, her history was that as a little girl, she'd been sent to work as a domestic servant in a richer household in Nepal. She came from the hill tribe areas, or the hill areas where people were poor. They didn't have money to take care of their children. She got sent down to a family where she was paid $5 to $6 a month to work from dawn till past dusk, doing indoor and outdoor tasks for a richer family. $5-6 a month. Then her sister arranged her marriage to an older man she'd never met. Then she ended up in the entertainment sector, where she was looking for some way out of her problems at home. She went to work in the bars and the karaoke clubs and that sort of thing. And think of it's so demeaning for these women in this part of the world, as in many parts of the world. Then she heard about Shakti Samuha, our programs for microloans. She got her microloan. She started a pig project, and within the first year was earning $3,000 a year, which is above the minimum wage in Nepal. We met her just a few weeks ago, frankly. She had 66 pigs on site. She's earning enough money to pay all her household expenses and to save $300 a year as a rainy day fund. And I said to her, Migma, we're honored to play some small role. Sorry, it makes me want to cry, but I said, we're honored to play some small role in your successful project here. She said to us, you may think it's small. To me, it was life-changing.
David Radcliff, it's been such a pleasure as always, and today it was a joyful pleasure to have you with us on Brethren Voices.
Brent, Ned, thank you so much for what you're doing, helping us get the word out about New Community Project, as well as all the other organizations that you all support and publicize. It's a valuable service to the communities and to all of us out here in nonprofit land.
Well, thank you so much. This is Brent Carlson for Brethren Voices.
And David Radcliff for New Community Project. Wishing you peace.
Which we live together, one sun shining on you and me. One ocean flows into another. One day we all will be free. One day we all will be free. One day we will all meet our Maker. Till that day we must do what we can to stand by each other, to love one another, every child, every woman and man. Every child, every woman and man. One world in which we live together, one sun shining on you and me. One ocean flows into another. One day we all will be free. One day